I started the log because I did not know what else to do. The Ardoth's wing was a cargo tender, one of 4 contracted to the Kethavar Provisional Freight Consortium, running sealed manifests between the outer survey stations and the distribution hub at Sector Relay Orvith 6. It was not a warship. It had no armament beyond a pair of automated collision deflection charges bolted to the forward housing, the kind that had never once been used in the ship's 41-year service record. The crew was 11. I was the youngest by 8 years, Ensign 2nd Grade Verath Oskale, rated for secondary communications and cargo manifest reconciliation. My primary duty on any given transit run was to confirm that the freight seals had not been broken and that the outgoing compact acknowledgement pings were logged in the correct format. That was all I was supposed to do. The drive fault had cascaded through the secondary bus at hour 19 of the Orvith Null transit run, and the resulting feedback arc had taken out 3 things simultaneously: the main drive motivator, the primary SOS relay array, and Lieutenant Commander Davin Osprell, who had been standing at the engineering console when the housing blew. He was alive. All 4 of them were alive: Davin, and Engineer Wheeler, and the 2 cargo handlers who had been in the aft corridor when the surge rolled through. They were in the medical bay, and Chief Medic Thavar Aln-Siras was managing, but she had told me in a flat voice that Davin needed a surgical suite that the Ardoth's wing did not have, and she needed me to understand what that meant within the next few hours. I understood what it meant. The SOS array was gone. The backup relay had been sharing a power housing with the primary, and the housing was now a blackened cavity in the portside bulkhead. The long-range hailing system could receive, but could not transmit above the compact minimum threshold for acknowledged emergency signals. I had checked 6 times. The nearest compact relay buoy was 11 hours away at maneuvering thrust, and we had maneuvering thrust only because the secondary motivator cell had been left undamaged by the cascade, though it ran at 31% capacity. The duty roster above Ensign 2nd Grade was in the medical bay. I was what was left. So I opened my private log channel, and I started talking. I do not know exactly why. The private channel was a low-power personal comm band, the kind every crew member was issued for off-duty use, short-range, encrypted, not wired into the ship's formal communications architecture. I had used it exactly twice before, once to send a message to my family after my first posting, and once to record a navigation notation I did not want to forget. It was not a distress frequency. It was not monitored by the compact relay network. It reached approximately as far as the end of a corridor, under normal conditions. I logged the ship's position by dead reckoning because the navigation display was still live. I logged the nature of the drive fault. I logged the names of the 4 injured crew members and the nature of their injuries in the order Medic Siras had described them to me, because that felt like the correct thing to do, to say their names somewhere in case no one else did. I logged my own name and rank. I noted the time. I noted that the primary SOS array was non-functional, and that I was attempting to maintain standard maneuvering thrust towards Sector Relay Orvith 6, and that I expected to reach minimum hailing range in 11 hours and 14 minutes. Then I did not know what else to say, so I said, I am continuing to monitor all incoming frequencies and will report any change in status. That was standard comms protocol. It was also the only thing I could think of that sounded like I knew what I was doing. I closed the log and went back to the instruments. 14 hours and 7 minutes later, 2 ships came out of transit at the edge of my sensor range. They were not compact marked. The silhouette signature did not match anything in the Ardoth's Wing *S vessel registry, and our registry was current to 30 days prior. The lead vessel was roughly frigate-sized, running a configuration I did not recognize. A long spine forward sensor array, engine nacelles mounted unusually high and wide. The second vessel was larger and slower, falling behind the lead by a noticeable margin. They hailed on my private channel frequency. I stared at the comms panel for what was probably 4 seconds before I answered. The voice that came back was calm. It was slightly imprecise in its use of compact standard. The accent carried a particular rounding on certain vowel clusters that I had not heard before, but every word was legible and carefully chosen, in the way a speaker uses when they are aware they may be working in someone else's language. Ardoth's Wing Asterisk. This is the Terran Patrol Corvette Sable Reach Asterisk, operating under Joint Survey Accord monitoring protocols. We are currently at your bearing, approximately 43 light minutes out. We have medical personnel aboard and are transiting to your position. Please confirm your current casualty count and the nature of the most critical injury. Speak at your own pace. I confirmed the casualty count. I described Davin's condition the way Medic Sears had described it to me, as accurately as I could. My voice was steady. I was somewhat surprised that my voice was steady. The Asterisk Sable Reach acknowledged. Then the comms officer, she said her name was Petra Vale, communications specialist first grade, and I heard her write something down, which struck me as a very human thing to do, said that the second vessel was a hospital tender, the Asterisk Mercer's Reach Asterisk, and that it carried a surgical suite rated for multi-species trauma and a staff of 12. She asked if I wanted to speak with the lead surgeon while the ships were still in transit, or if I preferred to wait. I said I would speak with the surgeon. I put the channel on speaker so Medic Sears could hear from the medical bay. At some point during that conversation, while the lead surgeon was asking Sears a series of rapid, very specific questions about Davin's internal pressure readings, I thought to ask how they had found us. Specialist Vale answered, with the same measured precision she had used throughout. She said my private log channel had been bleeding onto Earth's old joint survey band Orvith null. The relay housing crack, most likely, the same cascade fault that had taken out the SOS array, had partially compromised the adjacent personal comm relay node, widening the channel's bleed radius from its rated 30-meter range to something considerably larger. Earth's deep grid monitoring array ran a passive sweep on Orvith null as part of an unbroken standing protocol from the original Joint Survey Accord, now 160 years lapsed. The array had flagged my log entry as a distress pattern, not because I had used any formal distress keywords, but because the voice stress signature and the repeated enumeration of injured personnel and positional data matched the array's pattern recognition threshold. She said the Asterisk Sable Reach had been 4 hours into a routine corridor transit when the flag came through. They had diverted immediately. The Mercer's Reach had been 12 hours behind them on the same corridor and had received the forward relay from Sable Reach and altered course to follow. She said they had hailed on my private channel frequency because that was the frequency they had received the log on, and it was the only transmit frequency that appeared to be functional. I sat with that for a moment. I had not filed a formal SOS. I had not managed to reach the compact relay network. I had not aimed a single word at Earth, or at anyone who monitored Earth's survey bands, or at anyone at all, really. I had opened a personal log on a low-power private channel and said the names of my injured crew into what I believed was an empty frequency, because I did not know what else to do. Earth's deep grid array had been listening to a frequency no one had formally monitored in 160 years. It had heard me. It had flagged a diary entry as a distress pattern. It had dispatched a corvette and a hospital ship. When the Asterisk Mercer's Reach came alongside and the docking collar sealed, and the surgical team came through with Davin already on a transfer board, I was standing in the corridor holding a manifest clipboard because I had picked it up out of habit and then forgotten to put it down. The lead surgeon nodded at me as she passed. She was moving quickly and she did not stop. She did not need to stop. I filed the incident report the following day from the Sable Reach Asterisk S communication station, Once Davin was out of surgery and Medic Sears had sat down for the first time in 18 hours. The report ran to 3 pages. The section marked distress notification method gave me some difficulty. I wrote, "No formal SOS was transmitted. Crew communications log entry intercepted by Terran deep grid monitoring array via relay housing sidelobe bleed onto joint survey band Orvith null. Earth flagged as distress pattern. 2 vessels dispatched." Then I stared at that for a while. In the margin of my copy, in handwriting rather than the official character set, I added a note that I did not include in the filed version. I did not aim it at Earth. I did not aim it anywhere. I said their names out loud because someone should, and Earth was listening anyway. I do not know what the correct protocol response to that is. I am not certain there is one.